G'day, we're on to the last few jobs on Brupeg before we can get insurance and throw her in the water. In order to get that insurance, we have to have the batteries tied down to terra firma. Well, to steel at least anyway. So let's go and build some mounts. We're a Kiwi couple living in Australia who brought a 57-foot steel trawler after she sunk in a flood and was pulled from the sea. We're now bringing her back to life. We're on to the finishing jobs after working on her for the last 6 years to refit and get her ready for launch as soon as possible. Brupeg is rebuilt by us with volunteers funded by Patreons and viewers, and we spend every cent we have to make sure that she's ready. She's fueled by veggie oil, diesel, solar and wind power to do research, projects and expeditions to remote places like Antarctica and the Northwest Passage. She'll be crewed by supporters from around the world. Welcome aboard. Right, while we still have 12-volt battery start, I'm going to be mounting these guys in a stainless frame. So it's basically, you can sort of see this one here, the frame is a bit too wide. I'm going to be essentially making a version of that but slightly narrower, and it'll hold 2 batteries. Now, these batteries are temporary. We will be moving to an air start. We're not keeping electric start. A couple of reasons. The bell housing on the Cummins can only hold 1 starter motor. We did have a thought of electric on one side and air start on the other. We can't do that. This is a single starter bell housing. But the flip side is it's much easier for me to build in redundancy using air start than it is versus electric. I can have a spare electric starter motor and that would get me redundancy. I can have spare cables, but carrying multiple batteries is a challenge because with lead acid batteries, if you don't keep them on charge or you don't keep them, topped up in the right conditions, they fail, and that's what's killed our batteries. Lead acids are good if you treat them right. They're really, really rebuildable and hardy. They're a bit temperamental when you get them wrong. However, air start, we have multiple layers of redundancy for that. So our tanks are one part of it. So we have 2 compressors on board. We have a 240 volt electric compressor, and we also have a compressor on the Cummins. So we have 2 layers of redundancy there. The electricity for the air compressor can be delivered either from our solar batteries and inverter or our generator. And of that, we can top up the batteries up top via the alternator on the Cummins, or via solar, or via wind, or via the generator. So there's multiple layers there as well. And the flip side is if we completely run out of air, it takes us about 5 minutes in total to rebuild all of the air capacity in the tanks. We're going to be increasing the air capacity on the tanks. It takes about 5 minutes to build that back up, and we can carry on starting. So we can do that all day. Essentially, we can run the tanks dry, and then 5 minutes later they're good to go again. Have another go at cranking the engine, run them dry, top it back up, and we could just do that all day. Whereas if we were to flatten the lead acid batteries, there's 6 hours until I've actually got enough juice to be able to seriously wind this motor over. It takes 600 amps to wind this motor over. So they do get a workout, and it takes a long time to rebuild the charge on lead acid compared to having an air start. What I'm thinking of doing is basically just building 2 square frames like that out of angle iron. There, my measurements over there. This is just going to be out of stainless 50 by 50 angle. I'll do one on top of the other, and I'll hold them together with 50 by 25 rectangle bar. Right, new saw has been set up. I've just done a test cut. I've got a jig set up so that I can hold that end at the right height, and sort of looking along there, it's basically flat and perfect across the bed. In order to clamp this angle, I've got a piece of timber that's 45mm thick. So when I knock that up tight, this plus this here is exactly the same width as from there to over that side there. So that holds it nice and tight. I've just cut this off and checked it up with a square. It's a perfect 45, which is going to be bang on. Because I'm creating a rectangle, I need 4 45-degree cuts basically in order to make the corners. If I was fancy, I could take a 90-degree notch and then actually just fold each corner. However, I'm not fancy enough to get that right, because I know I'll end up folding it and it'll come into an S shape, because that's just how skilled I am at trying to get these things accurate. So we've got 2 rectangles to build, so therefore 8 pieces of steel in total. I'll get these cut all the 45 so that we can fit these all together, tack them together, and then we can start working on the 50 by 25 verticals, which are going to do the separation between the 2 batteries, and also off the bottom of the boat, because remember the batteries have to sit level, bottom of the boat's on an angle, so we're going to have a bit of a gap underneath these batteries. You can call me stupid. Listen, you can call me cheap. You can say I'm lazy. You can say I'm weak. You think that using her would get to me, and if you're right, then you're in trouble, D. 'Cause I won't break, no, I know I won't wait. You're in trouble, D. Right, that's my design. I made a slight modification in that I cut the front off. Originally I was going to have a piece of 50 by 50 angle at the front as well to stop them sliding out the front. However, I'm going to have a really solid bolt-on mount on each of these batteries. So there's no way they're going to go anywhere no matter what. They could literally sit on a flat surface and be fine. They also weigh 70 kgs each, so they have to be slid in from the front, and anything that makes it easier to move these things around is a good thing, given that they're so heavy and it's in quite an awkward position. Fit up isn't perfect. You can sort of see there the saw had a bit of a whoopsie down there. It's tight there, it's tight there. There's a couple, maybe 2 or 3 mil gap there. Not the end of the world. Actually gives me something to penetrate down when I TIG this up. This side here, we've got tight at the top and progressively bigger over here because the saw obviously hasn't cut it perfectly 45. If it's perfectly 45, this gap here, you can sort of see this one here sticking out a bit more than that one, coming out over this way. So it's all good. We can deal with that with welding. Either way, when we tack it together, you just put the square on and make sure it's bang on, and then we can weld it all up once it's tight. There we go, 2 of them. So I've welded up the internal corners, the vertical, but I haven't done the flat because I don't want the battery to be sitting on a weld. I don't want a high spot, and I'm not going to be able to get in there to grind them off easily. Same deal on this one, welded in both of these. You can sort of see, hopefully they'll show up on the camera. They came up all right. Over the back, same deal, just basically blended them in. That one's a bit manky. And no filler on these corners, just basically melted the 2 of them together. Exactly the same on this one here. So because I've welded them in the corner and we've got one end open and one end sort of closed and welded, they have warped. They've basically split open and opened up as they've cooled down, which is to be expected. They haven't moved that much. They've only probably moved 5 mil, so it's not really a big deal. Easy way to wait for them to cool down, and then just put a ratchet strap on them and crank them back up, and actually just pull that 5 mil in. Bend it more than the 5 mil, and then you'll let them back out, and they'll sort of sit where they need to go. The reason why I want them square, obviously for looks and all that sort of stuff, but because I'm having beams down either side, I need them to be the same width. So that's the main reason. The looks is, you can't tell just by looking at them that they're out of square, but the beam down the side, the fit up, is the thing that I'm really focusing on. Okay, what I've got to do is get rid of these batteries. But there's also a stainless frame that's sort of welded in here. Originally this would have held bottles, I don't know what, maybe acetylene, something like that, I'm not 100% certain. And it's got essentially a chain to, you know, lock whatever those bottles were off, and lots of stuff to stop them from making noise. I'm not gonna put that here. I'm not gonna use that in this particular position because it makes getting the batteries in and out really difficult. So as part of this mod, I'm probably going to take this frame out. I'll still keep this frame because it's awesome. I'll just probably reposition it somewhere else in the boat though, just so that I've got access to these batteries all the time. Now, what I will do is mount the widest one, because for some reason these batteries are the same make, they're the same model and everything, but slightly different cases. This this bottom one here is about 10 mil wider than this one here, so I've built them both to suit the bigger battery. And this one here will just have to do something to stop it from flopping around. But yeah, I'm not going to modify it to suit these batteries. I'm just going to sort of build generic frames. The reason being is because these are going, obviously, when we move to an air starter. This is actually all just temporary. However, we will be repurposing these shelves for something later on. Doesn't have to be batteries, but they're going to be really sturdy and decent shelves regardless. So next step is pretty much clear out all of this area so we can start getting the frame design completed.
What do I believe? What makes me feel it to write you this song?
So the cutting is done, and I strategically forgot to turn the camera on halfway through, but let me show you what I managed to get done. So this is where the mount basically sits. Over the back we had one beam coming out here and another beam that was welded onto this bit coming out sort of level there. And over the back was sort of the original battery mounts. They were a bit rubbish, so they're all gone as well. Now, one thing that I want to improve is, see how they welded it onto the hull, that whatever this old frame was, they welded it, you know, here and then over the back onto the hull there. The problem with that is if we ever need to replace this panel, we have to pull apart all of our mounts in order to be able to get this panel off. The sane way of doing it is welding everything onto the ribs, and that way if you ever need to cut this panel out, which, you know, happens from time to time, it means you can just take the panel off. You don't have to deconstruct half of your infrastructure in the boat. So this new set is hopefully not going to be touching this this floor. I'll be sort of doing angles or doing whatever I need to do in order to keep everything on the ribs. After a bit of a clean up and a scrub, I think it came up all right. So next step is figuring out where we're going to place these batteries. So my thought was mount them as low and as far back as I can, but given that these are temporary for the batteries and they're going to be redundant as soon as we move to air start, I still want to be able to utilize these. So what I'm actually thinking is making them so that they can house the welder, so our main uni-mig welder, and then also our plasma cutter. They're the two biggest sort of tools that we have. So I'm going to build them so that for later on, that's where those guys are going to live. And for now, it's going to be a battery mount, but they're going to be really sturdy. It also means that we can bolt those guys down. We don't have to worry about, you know, any shelving or anything not being strong enough for them and then crashing around the engine room. So this is the widest mount that I have. What I'm thinking is mount it sort of something like that, because that way I can always get around it. If I ever need to paint anything, sandblast anything, whatever, I can always get access to it. And it should be relatively easy to mount there. I think I'll build a couple of, like 4 legs maybe to go down, and then vertically off this I can just bring the bracket straight up for the top mount. So I think that's my plan actually.
5 months and a year, oh I loved you too long. You keep blowing me out, I keep holding you in.
I've made some bracket templates. So these are going to go on this piece of stainless. This is 50 by 6mm flat bar stainless. I've got to extend that one down, that's why I've offset that. But basically this is what I'm going to cut out, and then I've got one over here that's a spare. Well, it's not a spare, it needs to go on the right rear obviously, but I'm not going to be using flat bar for this one here. I'm going to be using 25 by 50 box section, which is just over the back for now. But let's get these cut out and then we can start mounting.
I cannot escape, I'm here till it breaks, oh how my heart aches. You keep blowing me out, I keep holding you in.
Right, each one is cut. They all fit their respective templates. Time to go and weld these things in, I think, isn't it? With that sitting in its place, you can sort of see how these just fit nicely onto the front on either side. So that's going to be my brace at the front. And I'm doing that so there's like a hard stop as well, so you don't have this sticking out into mid-air. I want to kind of, you know, protect anything. Not that it's probably going to matter, but you know, it's just a nicer way of presenting it, I think. The camera didn't record, but this is all tacked in now, so I'll leave that one where it is, and then I'll build the second layer and then tack that together. Once I've got everything tacked together, then I'll start welding it out. But a couple of braces down that side, a couple of braces down that side. I reckon that's going to be nice and solid once you've welded in. What I'm going to do is, with this back here, because we've got mild steel and stainless, and because it's box, I either need to weld all the way around it, or I need to seal that all the way around so no oxygen can get to that mild steel. So I'll weld as much as I can. If I can't get all the way around, then I'll do a bead of sealant right the way around, then put a coat of paint over everything just to stop anything, any oxygen attacking that steel. But pretty chuffed with that. The thing that I'm really pleased about is there's nothing on the ground anymore. So you can sort of see here, the paint came up to here, and over here this is old paint. It's because we couldn't get to it. So now we've actually made the boat more maintainable as well as doing this upgrade. One thing I have thought about is I've got 3 welders and a plasma cutter. I've got a Unimig 3-in-1 welder, which is quite a big beast. I'm going to put that down here, and then we've got our plasma cutter up here. I'm going to put that in the second layer, but I have been thinking about a third layer actually. The reason being is because I've got the little wee TIG welder just there. That's a SIG weld TIG welder. It's quite skinny, and then we've also got our little Unimig handbag welder. The thought I'm having is basically, why separate everything? Why not keep, you know, everything in one corner? This can be the welding corner, for example, and basically 3 welders and a plasma cutter can be located in this one spot. So Yeah, I think I'll probably look into that. I'll see if I've got enough room. The SIG welder and the little wee handbag welder don't need a lot of height, so I can actually jam them up quite tall, and they're very light too, so I can jam them up quite tall without it being an issue. So maybe that's something I do. It's a battery upgrade for now. Batteries are going in the future and it'll be a welding area, so yeah, why not turn this into the welding corner now. So I've just gone down and done some measurements. The plasma cutter, I need 360 to get that in. So I've made this at 370 at the bottom, so it'll just clear. The MIG welder is taller. I need 390, so I'll give that 400. So that's that line there. So once we've got the third frame built, if I put that up there, that should give us enough room to fit the other two welders up the top. They're not very tall, so they can stack up there. So let's get this welded in at this height here. As is often the case, I have to swap from one job to the next. The reason being is the stainless that I had for the verticals, because I've changed the design slightly, I don't actually have enough stainless to do all 4 vertical legs, so I'm going to put that job on hold. I'll go into the supplier tomorrow and grab, it's a Monday now but it's a public holiday, so I'll go into the supplier tomorrow and grab some at 7 o'clock tomorrow when they open. Also I need to glue in a big sheet of plywood that's all painted up ready to go, but I need to glue that in underneath our lithium batteries up in the wheelhouse. So last job that we have to do for the insurance is position where our life jacket's going to be. So I'm actually going to be putting those up onto the roof above me up here. So one of the tricks that I'm going to do is weld on chain links so that I can then do a netting and bungee arrangement so that we can throw all of our life jackets into a holder basically on the roof.
On board we need to find a way to make tie down points to attach things to, and this is Dame's technique. He gets stainless chain. You can see he's cutting every second link using a screwdriver upside down in the vise. He's got it as a spike. He can really pull on the chain to cut it, make it really easy, make it fast, and then that's a ready-made tag that he can just weld on wherever he wants on the boat, which we'll see soon.
The reason why I like using them in this orientation rather than cutting them and just say welding that onto a piece of steel is, imagine trying to weld these two little ends and actually getting them to hold on and getting your welding gun in there and all that. With a big flat thing like that, you can just stick it straight onto the surface you're welding and buzz straight down the side, and you get a really strong, easy weld. You don't have to muck around. So yes, you have a little bit more material wastage, but you save a huge amount of time by just doing it like that.
Pretty cute. You're pretty damn cute. You are. Whoopsie. Such a little troublemaker. Gosh, you're skinny. I really think you need to eat more food.
Right, so these tags, this one here is our life jacket one because it clears the doors. And the thought that I had was, if we have too many of these, it's going to be impossible to pull the bungee down far enough to get them in and out. So I was thinking one on either side of this, in the middle.
Yeah, I think you need one in the middle, eh?
And that gives you like 3/4 of a metre either side roughly to pull it down.
Because it's the bungee that'll give it the
yeah.
drop.
And it might be that we end up not using this one. If it's too tight, it might be that we end up just taking it out of the middle one and we just have a line going between them that we can pull down. But I don't know until we, oh, you know what we could do is end up with a bungee line going between them and then with a smaller line
I love that.
bungee going vertical.
Line. Yeah, let's do that.
So I'll just do the same front and back. So you can pull it in and out front or side. So 12 in total. So
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, okay, cool, I'll do that.
So that's, okay, I've just jumped.
Yeah.
How many people will we have on board on a meet-up going around somewhere, a cove or something? And I'm thinking 30, and I'm thinking that's not enough, and then I'm thinking, no, this is just for the insurance. They only need to see us with 4
But
or
also
6.
this won't necessarily limit how many life jackets
No,
they have.
exactly.
This
but
is just the neat.
it's like I keep collapsing the actuals with getting insurance requirements.
Plus, if we need more, we can actually just add another row behind.
Yeah.
Because we'd only have to add in 3 on either side.
Storage area here as well for
yeah.
the work we'll be doing. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, we'll be fine.
I'm going to do a close on at the back with the remainder. I was just going to weld them like every 200 mil along and then just string a line straight across. Happy with that? Alright.
So we had an event, major event on the boat today. We came out and the dog was peeing out the back.
Yeah, the ground's wet because I washed it down.
Yeah. And he got the biggest clap and good boys, and you ran and got him some biscuits and and he looked at us like, what, this is what you want me to do?
Yeah, are you happy with me peeing on the back of your boat?
Because we were thinking, how are we going to train this dog to pee on board?
And then he went and did it himself.
He's a clever boy. And I'm mobile, yay! I've been unable to handle strapping on my knee because it's been too sore, and now I can strap it, I can move around a bit, so I'm so excited, and it's starting to properly heal. One of the best bits of advice I think we got in the early days was from someone in the yard here, and he said, because we were worried because we were painting, like sandblasting and painting, everything was kind of tidy, and so now you've got to go and add something, or you've got to cut something out and change something, and he said, oh, that's what we do all the time. Don't expect yourself to have a paint job and it stay pristine. It won't happen. So it was really good because it kind of gave us permission to mess things up. So that's why he's going to sand back some of that paint, dig into it, then he's going to weld, the little brackets. If you call it a bracket, you call it a chain link, yeah?
Yeah, chain link.
Chain link. A miniature bracket. That's what it is in my head anyway.
Tie down point.
Tie down point. It's a tie down point. That's probably official, isn't it? Tie down point.
Probably.
Yeah. That sounds like a yachty thing.
Yeah, but in Australia specifically, it can be used for kangaroos as well.
Tie your kangaroo down sport.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's a horrible line now. I've just realised what that line is. Stop tying the kangaroos down. Let them run free, man. Oh. So that's what we're doing. So pristine no longer. But how you deal with that is, you paint, you etch and then paint over top, and you can go right round the weld, so it keeps it nice and rust free, hopefully. His first bone. He's into it. Happy chicken. He's been chasing me around on this. He's decided that it's too dangerous, and he's the boss, so he's not permitting me to drive around in the seas chasing me. So I'm racing around, getting in front of him. It's hilarious. Hopefully we'll get it on camera. John Duffy, you observant thing, you. Yes, we did drag this with us when we went and picked up Snoop-dog. This, we've been looking for one because of course we're going to have carpets throughout because we want to be comfortable and soft on feet, and dog needs something to grip and all of that, and soundproofing. But we wanted a Dyson because you can get this what's this thing called?
Model?
This model? Yep. This model particularly because you can buy parts and fix it yourself. But we wanted something that would be suitable. But these are really expensive, so we got this for $75, and the parts are replaceable.
So the plan in these roof areas here, we're going to keep this sort of section here clear for the doors as they swing open. They need a bit of space. But this section here, we're going to make a netting arrangement. So this is the netting that we're using, and this is going to hold our life jackets up. So it's basically going to be like a roof-mounted cargo net with bungee to give it some tension and so on. And essentially what it'll mean is on the roof, whenever we need a life jacket, we can just reach in from the cargo net, pull it out, or stuff them back in if we need it up there. So we have the ability to expand and add another row over here if we ever need more life jackets, but for now we're going to have one on this side and then one on this side facing that way, so we should easily be able to fit, I don't know, 15, 20 life jackets when they're all sort of stuffed up there nice and tight. So I have my argon bottle connected to my handbag welder. I call it that because there's a standard size shoe for measurement. It is really tiny. It's a little 4.5 kg welder, but it's TIG and stick. It is a lift arc TIG, which means I don't have a trigger. So you can see on here, I've got basically gas, turn that on, turn it off, etc. I do have a normal gas lens nozzle, so it's quite a nice nozzle, but it is just a valve as opposed to like a high frequency start, like my blue SIG weld welder. But anyway, I thought it'd be a good little
test to see if we can get these on with the tiny little handbag welder. Lift TIG is much harder than standard high frequency start. High frequency start, you press a button and it automatically starts shooting out a plasma at the end of your TIG torch. With scratch start, you have to basically touch the tungsten onto your workpiece and then pull it off, and that creates an arc, and then you can carry on welding from there. So it is a bit harder, but it's much cheaper to make them, you know, when they're a scratch start, and it's also much smaller, so that's why you can have such a tiny little welder like that. Ow, 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 ow. And a burnt tungsten. Sweet. Okay, so I hate lift arc. Not getting my head around lift TIG.
Oh, harder for me. Maybe we're over it, or maybe just lovers, 'cause under the covers, baby, you're showing me.
That's horrible, isn't it?
You're throwing the pillars through the floor. Now put your loving on me. Hey.
Starting to get the hang of this.
Maybe you won't see me get emotional, and sometimes I pretend I'm just above it all. But I want you lying next to me. Yeah, I want your body too. Yeah, body too. And baby, please don't think I run away from you. It's just sometimes.
Well, that was my first time using that welder doing lift TIG for God knows how long, maybe 6 months, 8 months was probably the last time I did lift TIG. And yeah, I have to say, using that little welder was horrific. So I think I'll admit that that's going to be probably my welder of last resort. The reason being is I've got 2 other welders that are much nicer to use. Well, one of them's much nicer to use, one of them's okay. And the flip side is that if I really need to use something that desperately that I'm prepared to go and use that little welder again, I really need to sit down and think about my actions. So what I've created is a row of tie downs there and a row of tie downs and those 2 beams there, and then 5 tie downs on either side, so on there and row them across there. And these ones at the back are going to be our clothesline, so on both sides they'll be strung hot, and then these ones here right the way over there are going to be our life jackets. Right, roof welder. Next step is getting these lithium batteries under the wheelhouse floor bolted down. So my plan for these guys is actually just get rid of them, lift them out, fit a layer of plywood. It's 18mm thick plywood. I'm going to glue that down. It's 700 by 600, so it's quite a big area. Be a big smear of adhesive on the bottom of that. That'll be glued down. Stick the batteries back on top to weight it down, and then we'll start screwing in the mounts onto that plywood. They'll be screwed in, and then the batteries will be strapped down onto that ply itself. I like using plywood when I'm mounting the bottom of my batteries just because it's a non-conductive surface. Just makes it easy, gets the battery away from the steel of the boat. Not that there should be any issues, these are in a box of their own, but it's a steel box, so it's a conductive box. So yeah, I like to just, if I can, lift them up and put a bit of non-conductive something, in this case plywood, underneath any batteries.
You can ask spring how it is when the buds are bursting. You can watch the birds when they fly across the world. Weights can't lift you up, you can find a way to drop them.
In case you're wondering, I have a lot of excess cable here. It's because I've measured it out to fit up in a cable tray that's not yet fitted.
Oh, don't mind the fall, break down when it burns, please. Don't be concerned, 'cause it's how we learn. It has to hurt, it has to hurt. Every single turn, don't beg your pardon, you're not someone's victim. It has to hurt, just has to hurt. It's how we learn, don't be concerned. It has to hurt, yes, every single turn. Don't beg your pardon, you're not someone's victim. It has to hurt, it has to hurt.
While Dame waited for the paint to dry, because it's such a hot day. We've got a bit of a heat wave as part of the country. He took Snoop down for a bit of a swim at the local beach.
Happy boy. We need to get you further out, don't we?
The lovely woman we got Snoop from said in the ad she wanted to be able to keep in touch and monitor really how Snoop was going, make sure he was okay. We thought, well, the channel might be perfect. She can check it anytime she wants.
So I picked up some more material today. I've got some 50 by 25 box and some more 50-50 angle. 50-50 angle is so that I can make the third shelf, and the box is so that I can make the rest of the legs, the vertical legs. So let's get all of the tools out and get that chopped up. The stuff I was just cutting was 6mm thick angle, 50 by 50 angle. That's designed to be as strong as I could get it basically for this shelf, but that's because it's holding two quite heavy batteries. This top shelf doesn't have to be as strong, so it's actually only 3mm this stuff here. Therefore I can bend it. So I'm going to cut it to length here, and rather than cut down here and then cut the notches out, etc., I'm just going to cut these notches out and then give it a go at actually bending this into a frame. I think that's going to be tidier, and if it doesn't work I'll just cut them and, you know, measure it up the way it needs to be, but I'm just going to have a go and see if I can actually bend this 3mm. Moment of truth. Yep, I think we can make that work. So it's fast, but it's not accurate. It's 15mm too big in the width, so I'm just going to cut those corners, clean them up, and then, yeah, just get it into the right width. Trouble with doing it where I don't have a brake press is you can't control this corner, so you get a big radius in the corner. Right down the bottom there, it's reasonably tight, but yeah, can't really control this corner, so it's a bit of a shambles. So yeah, pretty easy just to slice it and make it nice and easy. All right, problem solved. I've chopped them, I've cleaned them. I took about 5mm out of each corner in order to get the, you know, the angles and everything spot on. This did have an inherent bend in each of these corners here up here, and I've flattened it out with the small adjustment stick. But now that we've got them done like that, from there to there, outside to outside is 285mm, exactly the measurement that we need. So I'll tack that together. I'll do it in the boat because all my welders set up in the engine room, so I'll do that up in the engine room. Next job is to start cutting the verticals. I think we're ready to start tacking. So basically what I've got is 3 beams, 2 at the front, 1 at the back. This beam here has an angle that goes off to that rib up on the roof, and this one here mounts onto this cross member here. The back, I was going to tip everything back on a slight angle and stagger everything back, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to have it vertical, mainly because I'm not going to gain anything out of it. There's wasted space behind here, but I can't necessarily use it for anything. If I tip it back, it doesn't give me any advantage, so I'm just going to keep the front straight, makes it nice and easy to build. So I'll start tacking it in. I've got the second shelf to tack in. Once I've got this sort of frame done, I'll tack the second shelf in, and then I have these pieces here of our top shelf, the lighter 3mm thick angle, so I'll tack those together. I'll tack it together in here just as a frame itself, and then I'll tack it into position up here when we're ready to go. So time to crank the welder out and start getting some glue squirted onto this.
got a bit of noise happening with the extractor fan going. But now it's time just to sit back, relax and enjoy 3 hours of TIG welding. There we have it, fully welded out. I reckon that came up alright. We'll get some paint on those welds and we'll start loading it up with stuff.
Dame's painting where stainless steel is welded onto mild steel, because you get a bit of mild steel in the weld, so it'll rust if you don't. Stainless on stainless, no issues.
Next job on the list was climbing under the wheelhouse floor into the battery area where we keep our lithiums. I ordered some marine rated webbing straps, battery straps. I started screwing these in. Then I had a bit of a think.
So I've been sitting here in the sweltering heat pondering. I think I'm going to make a design change. These marine rated battery straps that I ordered have arrived and I think they're absolute garbage. So the locking mechanism is really strong, like it holds it really, really tight, but in order to tighten it up you have to basically have it at a 90-degree angle to the cord, open these two jaws ever so slightly and pull it. If you don't do that, you just can't undo it or do it up. I've done one battery up tight and now I can't actually undo it to make any adjustments. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's held on with these piss-ass little nylon straps, which may well be strong enough, I don't know, but they're pretty flimsy. I don't really fancy their chances. So what I'm actually thinking is just going real hardcore, just getting some big stainless saddles and then some stainless ratchet straps and just literally ratcheting it down to the big stainless saddles. Probably not going to look as pretty, but I have a lot more faith in that than I do in these dainty little plastic things. So I get that an hour-and-a-half round trip in the middle of the day is not the most effective use of time, but in saying all of that, I think I'm better off to go and get that ratchet strap and put it on the battery now rather than put up with those other straps that I bought, because I just think they're going to drive everyone that has to touch those batteries insane having to work on them, because they're just so cumbersome, and the little plastic clips I just have no faith in. I can't see the batteries not moving with those crappy little clips. So the flip side is great big stainless U-bolts and some stainless ratchet straps, and I think we'll end up with a solution that's pretty usable over the life of those batteries or the life of the boat sort of thing. So my solution is a couple of ratchet straps that are going to be shortened down to length, and then some pretty solid saddles that we're going to be utilising, as well as the biggest, these are 10 gauge, the biggest screws we can fit inside the countersink of these saddles. What I do plan to do is get rid of these hooks. I'm not going to use the hooks, I'm actually just going to use the webbing, and then I'll slide these guys sort of through the webbing so that it sits, as tight as we can to the ground. The other thing I wanted to touch base with everybody on, especially all of the electricians that commented on the last episode, thank you for commenting. So yes, it was AC earth cable that I used on that stern light. There's a specific reason I used it, and it comes down to actually getting parts, right? In Aussie, it's almost impossible to get the cable that I needed. So I went to 3 separate electrical wholesalers and none of them could access 6mm squared conductor that was tinned in red or black. The only thing that they could get me was 6mm earth cable, as you saw that I used, that's tinned. Now, so the variables that I'm working with is basically I can't get the right colours. I could get the right colours if I don't use tinned, but then I'm building in essentially failure into an external light on the boat. I really, really would rather the nav lights work than the colours be perfect, because to me that's a safety thing. Like I get they're both safety things, right? I get that the colours have to be right on the wires, but I get that the lights also have to work. And if we're run down by someone that doesn't see us, they're probably not going to give a shit that I've got the wrong colour wires on the boat. However, I completely agree with you, it needs to be the right colours. This is the thing, in Aussie, they'll sell you 6mm wire, but it won't be 6mm squared conductor. For some reason they sell, I think from memory it's 3.84mm conductor gets sold as 6mm, and it drives me insane because it's absolutely not, like it's it's not, you know, anyway, whatever. I appreciate everybody telling me that it was the wrong cable. I completely agree with you. It needs to be done right, but the variables that I'm working with, it's almost impossible to make it right. If anybody has access to red or black 6mm squared conductor, I need 20 meters of each, and I literally can't buy it. So yeah, if anybody knows of any that they can get or supply or something like that, please like comment, because I want to get this right. But right now I know it's not right, but it's as good as I can get it given the variables that I'm working with.
And there we have a much more space efficient ratchet strap. So by the time you hook that in there like that, this can be pretty much down on the ground, and then that can sit on the top of the battery. So it should look pretty neat when we're finished, and we know that it's going to be more than rated for what we need to do. There we have it, 3 battery straps. I think it's a much nicer solution.
So I need to bolt those 2 batteries down in the engine room. Normally you'd put a bit of threaded rod. Luckily I've got some. It's ridiculous. Sorry. We'll use stainless. All right. We'll use the right size stainless.
And you can sort of see that's the end, how they come, basically just tapered down slightly, and you can, I believe, screw a nut over top of that. Yeah, okay, so that's fine. And then these are just my ground down ends. You can sort of see it's tapered right off, and then screws on perfect. So there's no need to thread the nut on before you cut it, or to run a die down. You can do those things, but you don't need to if you just grind it on an angle and then give it a nice buff up. Next step is start making the battery mounts for these guys. So threaded rod welded on either side like that, just with a plate of stainless of some sort going across. Nice and simple, and plenty strong enough to hold the full weight of those batteries. So what I've done, doesn't have to be specific, but I've got these guys set at the same length, so I can just use that as a placeholder, tuck that down like that, and then tack up the side of it. There we have it, 2 batteries nicely mounted, and 2 welders nicely mounted too. So we've got our Unimig stick welder, well, stick and TIG on the right hand side, and then we've got our SIG weld TIG welder on the left hand side. Beautiful TIG welder, that one. On the batteries, made a couple of stainless angle bar mounts. You can see that go on the threaded rod there, and they just bolt the batteries down so they're nice and tight. Next step, we'll give these a charge, and then we'll start wiring them back up so that we can carry on with our insurance list and get this boat in the water. I was thinking for this thing to like just weave it back and forth all the way through like that.
Yeah.
You know? Now time to build our Lifejacket Cargo Net. After a day's fishing, the traditional folk come in and use bungee cord on their nylon netting. These are our
excess people life jackets. So when we've got lots of people on the boat, and we'll all the normal crew and everything will have like inflatable life jackets, the sort of tube type life jackets, and these will be our you know, when we've got extra people on the boat and we need to have life jackets. We've got, I think we've got 25 of these or something. So we've got heaps of these. These all came from Malcolm's boat. So they're ex-commercial life jackets.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Thanks, Malcolm. These are going up on the roof shortly, and that's going to be part of our insurance requirements, is to have these on the boat.
So that's it. The insurance company has asked for these 3 jobs to be complete, photo evidence provided. We've got 2 companies interested in us. It's very hard to get insurance for a boat like ours. We'll give it a go. It's looking possible, so we'll keep you updated.